Well, we just got the answer to the big question that we've been asking ourselves all day. Would President Biden shake hands with Saudi Crown Prince MBS, the man he wanted to make a pariah over human rights abuses? The answer? No. The president went with a fist bump instead. Here is the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia receiving President Biden at the Royal Palace shortly after he landed in Jeddah. It was a very quick acknowledgement, and then the president was ushered inside. Before arriving at the Royal Palace, the president descended from Air Force One, not on a red carpet, but a purple one. That's the color of royalty, with a handful of Saudi officials. President Biden's next 2 days are high stakes as he's expected to discuss Iran, human rights abuses, and the issue affecting almost every American, skyrocketing gas prices. Here's former U.S. Deputy Special Envoy under President Trump, Eli Kohanim.
Joe Biden has huge domestic issues. Again, he won't use our own energy resources because he's kowtowing to his radical left-wing fringe of his party, won't use American energy. And so he's left with no choice but to go begging around the world for other folks' energy, oil and gas reserves and capabilities.
I want to show you how President Trump was greeted when he visited Saudi Arabia in 2017. Saudi men wearing traditional Saudi garb and a state dinner. It was his first visit outside the U.S. as commander-in-chief, a stark contrast to how President Biden was received. Now, without knowing if the two men will settle their royal feud, President Biden is expected to ask the Crown Prince to ramp up oil production, of course, and this is all just getting started. I will be back and following all this all night long tonight as well. But the oil production issue, President Biden needs the costs that are soaring to be reined in, that in part has driven inflation to a 4-decade high, 9.1% in June, and of course the crucial midterm elections in November right around the corner. Now back to you.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Yeah, no sword dance this time around.
No.
For this visit.
Right.
There's really been the relationship between the two countries has clearly degraded over the last year and a half.
Very much so.
Joining us now to discuss the president's trip is Pennsylvania Congressman and member of the House Foreign Relations Committee, Congressman Scott Perry. Congressman, thanks for being here. President Biden, as we've been discussing, in Saudi Arabia to discuss energy supplies, human rights, and security cooperation on a trip designed to reset that U.S. relationship with a country he once pledged to make a pariah on the world stage. This, of course, comes amid tensions on oil and the Khashoggi killing as well. High-stakes trip, Congressman. What are your thoughts on his performance so far?
Well, I think that he's hoping that both the Saudi royal family as well as the American people either aren't paying attention or have a very short memory. As you said, President Biden sought to make Saudi Arabia a pariah, and now he's going over there with hat in hand, asking them to produce more oil. At the same time, he's working with their nemesis, Iran, on reviving the JCPOA. And I would think if you're the Saudis, you would say, well, why don't you just produce more oil or more gas since you have more than we do? And how do you come over here looking for concessions from us on human rights and on some kind of peace agreement, so to speak, and concessions on that when you're dealing with the largest terrorist state on the planet, which is Iran? I just think that it's not going to be very fruitful. You can probably understand why he puts America's interests in peril. He's going there asking for them to produce more oil, refine more oil, while we just closed down 6 refineries in the United States, and the president has sold our strategic portions of our strategic oil reserve to China. It's schizophrenic to be at best, and it's certainly not in America's best interest to make the decisions that the president is making on our behalf.
Yeah, Congressman, great point. So many people saying that this is a big PR move for the president, but I think, if anything, we're seeing this as a negative PR move. Also, in a speech this morning, President Joe Biden called for 2 states for 2 peoples, the Israelis and Palestinians, while visiting the West Bank. He didn't take questions today, but Biden was asked Thursday if he would recognize Jerusalem as the nation's capital. Let's take a listen.
Your visit tomorrow is Jerusalem, and you won't be accompanied by an Israeli official. Does this represent a change in your administration's view regarding the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and if East Jerusalem is part of it? Thank you.
Answer your last question is no.
He said no. Your response to that?
So horrifically disappointing. The president is met with the Palestinian Authority, gave him another over $300 million in American taxpayer money. At the same time, what we could be doing is, of course, recognizing the internationally recognized capital of Israel, which is Jerusalem, and also the promise of the Abraham Accords. And the current president could be working towards expanding the glory of those things that President Trump ushered in, which were historic, that pretend peace across the Middle East. Instead, using taxpayer money to fund the terrorist organization of the Palestinian organization, which generally attacks not only American citizens, but certainly Israeli citizens. And it's just a step horrifically in the wrong direction, of course, right out in public, right in your face. And it's a slap in the face to the greatest and most free state and our ally in Israel, in that portion of the world. And it's so disappointing, and it's just regrettable. There's not much. I don't see much good in the whole thing, unfortunately.
Congressman, the president is over in Saudi to try to convince them to pump more oil. There are reports out today that say that if they do that, that could actually end up undercutting NATO and be a boon to Russia. Your thoughts on that report? Is that something that is concerning you and your colleagues on the Hill?
Of course, it's concerning to us and my colleagues on the Hill. Look, nobody likes what's happening in Ukraine, and nobody supports what Russia is doing there. But instead of traveling 6,000 miles to Saudi Arabia to beg the Crown Prince or even to Venezuela or anywhere else to our enemies in the world to get more oil, he could have traveled 1,000 miles to New Orleans or to Texas and had American oil and refining capacity increased. And then we could control that, and then we could control what happens with Russia on the international energy market. We're not going to have any control of what that increased production, if Saudi does increase their production, where that's going to go, and it's likely going to go to Russia. It completely undercuts all of our positions, and of course, at the very same time, Americans are paying record prices at the gas pumps.
Speaking of what's happening here in the United States, let's turn now, before we run out of time, we want to get your thoughts on this. President Biden's domestic agenda. We've been reading the headlines that Democrat Senator Joe Manchin has pulled the plug on negotiations, informing his party's leaders that he's not going to support funding for climate change or energy programs or raising taxes on wealthy Americans and corporations. He said he's all in for knocking down those prescription drug costs, however, but he's not going to go along with any of those other measures. Your response to that? We've got about 20 seconds.
Well, look, Joe Manchin obviously understands the people in West Virginia and across the country that are hurting economically, and taxing people more when you have record inflation, record cost of living is not going to help. The more of the green climate agenda that the Biden is pushing and the left is pushing is destroying the energy market. People can't afford electricity and gasoline. It's only going to make that worse. I'm glad Joe Manchin recognizes it. I wish more Republicans recognized it as well.
All right. Great insights there. Congressman Scott Perry, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Have a great day. God bless you.
You too. Thank you.